Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me out here in Zoom land. I'm Mrs. Klein, prevention specialist from the Council on Chemical Abuse. I hope that you and your families are healthy and staying safe. I know these are strange and crazy times, and uh, it's getting a little crazy having to, stay away from friends and our family, but there's hope. And soon we will get back to normal. But in the meantime, I miss being in the classroom, but I appreciate you taking the time to uh, take a look at the program I am offering today. So let's get started with that. First, you may need a piece of paper and a pen to write some notes down for the activity, and you should have gotten a worksheet that goes along with this program, the forensic file chart. So you'll need that. All right, so let me share my screen, and you probably won't have to look at my face much longer. I'll hide that. We'll look at the PowerPoint and go through this together. Perfect. All right, forensic files. We're going to talk about prescription medication, over-the-counter drugs, and street drugs. Street drugs, obviously, they're not made in a licensed lab. They're usually made in like secret labs in homes, or they're grown illegally. These drugs are sold on the street, and obviously they are illegal to possess, to sell, or to use. So there's lots of different street drugs, but we're going to focus on these four for today. First, you have methamphetamine, which is also known as ice, glass, meth, crystal. It is a stimulant. A stimulant means it increases the way the body is functioning. So if you look at some of the side effects that are listed here, you'll see a lot of that has to do with the increase in the way the body is functioning. The body temperature, the energy is usually increased. They could have a lot of irritability, erratic and violent behavior, a lot of anxiety. And I'm sure you may have looked at pictures of people who have taken methamphetamine over time. They may have rotted teeth or missing teeth, and they can have skin sores over their body. Next, we have cocaine. Cocaine is also known as crack, coke, snow, blow. Again, cocaine is a stimulant, so it's going to have many the similar side effects to methamphetamine, the increase in way in which the body is functioning. So again, you're going to have that anxiety, the increased energy, could be erratic and violent behavior. A lot of times, a loss of appetite accompany um, cocaine use, panic attacks, and sweating. Then you have your MDMA, which is known as ecstasy or XTC, or Molly, right? If you look, these pills, it comes in a pill form, and they look similar to candy, okay? So you need to be very mindful as you get older and maybe go to parties that you don't take anything from anybody, because you're not going to know what it is. Anytime with street drugs, any street drug, it's one of the dangers is that drug dealers don't tell people exactly what is in the product. So these products could be mixed with other ingredients, other drugs that could make them even more dangerous than what they already are. MDMA is a very unique drug because it does a couple of things at the same time, right? It can cause hallucinations and that sort of euphoric feeling, right? That state of extreme happiness, but at the same time, it can also act as a stimulant that it's increasing the energy and body temperature as well. So you'll see across the board, a lot of times with these three drugs, the side effects are going to look similar. And last, you have your heroin, which is most also known as like junk or dope, smack, okay? Heroin is different from these three in that it is a depressant, which means it's slowing down the way the body functions. So if you look at the side effects, they're very different because everything is decreasing, right? You have decreased in respiratory issues or breathing, third speech, or drowsiness, dry mouth, and obviously it's going to suppress pain. Okay, then we have prescription drugs. So prescription drugs are made in a licensed lab, and these are medications that are prescribed to us by our doctor. They are legal to possess as long as you have a prescription for you. It is illegal to take prescription drugs that are not prescribed to us. Again, with prescription drugs, obviously there's thousands of drugs that have been made in order to help us with, various um, illnesses and diseases. However, these are the three most widely abused medications. We have our stimulants, pain relievers, and depressants. So your stimulants, which are going to be very similar to the way they affect the body to the street drugs meth and cocaine. These are drugs that are usually prescribed for people who have ADHD, like Adderall and Ritalin. So the side effects you'll see are like that of meth and cocaine, that anxiety, irritability, and an increasing the way the body is functioning. And then you have your pain medicine or your pain relievers. These are similar to the effects of heroin. Heroin and pain medication are almost exactly the same. A lot of times these medications are made from the same plant as heroin is, the opium poppy plant, and they are going to affect the body the exact same way. If you look at the side effects from heroin and the pain relievers, you'll see that everything is decreasing, okay? Because pain relievers are also depressants. They're slowing down the way the body functions. If being prescribed pain medicine, we have to be very, very careful that we are taking this medicine as prescribed and only if we need it. Addiction to pain medicine can happen very, very quickly. And a lot of times we see when people become addicted to their pain medicine, there is this turnover, this switch to using heroin because heroin is much cheaper. And when people become addicted to pain medicine, the withdrawal is very severe. They feel very sick. It's like having the flu times 1,000. So when they're so sick and they can't get any more pills, many times we see that people turn to heroin in order to help with the withdrawal, and it's much cheaper to get. And lastly, you have your central nervous system depressants. These are medications that people take for their mental health if they have anxiety. And while they are depressants similar to pain relievers, they are working on a different part of the body. They're working in the central nervous system, and their job is to kind of slow down all the electricity that's going on in the brain. So that's why they are used for people that have anxiety, where their mind may be racing over and over again, to help kind of allow them to relax and to focus and to function. But you'll see that the side effects again are similar to that of the prescription pain relievers. Right, and lastly, we have our over-the-counter drugs. These are medicine that are made in labs. You do not need a prescription for these drugs, so you can go to any pharmacy or Walmart and pick them up. So they are legal to have. However, we still have to be mindful that it is technically medicine, and you should be taking them as directed on the box. People can become sick and overdose on them. When we talk about abusing over-the-counter drugs, usually it's the medicine found in cough medicine. I'm going to try and pronounce this. Dextromethorphan. Okay, it's a mouthful, but it's mostly known as DXM, or you may have heard it from different in different songs. In hip hop songs, it's known as like syrup or robo triple C. Okay. This medication, if taken in excess, can cause confusion, blurred vision, dizziness, nausea, slurred speech, difficulty urinating, and vomiting. Okay. All right. So on to the activity. Forensic files. So it's going to be your job. You're going to be a detective and working in the drug identification unit. So we're going to go over a bunch of cases, and it's going to be your job to determine what the drug that was used in these crimes. All right, case number 1. It is going to be your job to read the reports and then determine which drug. So here you can make notes. You can pause me if you like to kind of like read on your own, but I'm going to go through everything with you. Right, so here's our first incident report. The officer reported that on October 20th, 2019, I was dispatched to 123 West Side Bridge in response to a 911 call reporting a fire under the bridge. Callers reported seeing people under the bridge just before the fire started. This location has a reputation of people hiding out and using drugs. Firefighters extinguished the fire. They discovered 3 people in their mid-20s on the other side of the bridge unharmed. The individuals appeared to be under the influence. They were confused and their speech was slurred. The suspects were taken in for possible arson and drug possession. All right, so let's make a couple of notes. What do we want to remember from this report as far as being able to determine what the drug was that the suspects used? Yes, we want to remember that they were confused and their speech was slurred. Here's our next witness statement. All 3 suspects appeared drowsy. She checked their breathing and determined that they each had decreased respiratory rate. Well, I already circled that for you. They appeared drowsy and they had their breathing was decreased, right? So we want to remember that. Our second witness statement from Ellen Anderson. I was driving by the bridge before the fire started. I saw one of the 3 suspects holding his stomach like he was nauseated and about to throw up. The other 2 were stumbling around and holding onto a pillar of the bridge so they would not fall down. Right, so this statement, we want to remember that they were nauseated and about to throw up and that they were stumbling around. Very good. All right, and here's the evidence that was collected, that light tan powder substance in a small baggie found several yards from the fire. All right, so here's what we know. The officer reported the slurred speech, confusion. The witnesses reported decreased respiratory rate. They observed nausea and stumbling around. And the evidence collected was the light tan powder substance in a small baggie. All right, so from looking at the forensic file chart that you have, and from what we know, what drug was used in this case? So here is the report from the law enforcement lab. They analyzed the powder in the small baggie, and it was determined to have contained diacetylic morphine, which is the active ingredient found in the street drug heroin. So if you took a look at the evidence collected, right, the baggie, and then the effects that the suspects were exhibiting, everything was slowed down, okay? And you should have come up with heroin. Very good. All right, case number 2. Again, we're going to read the reports and then determine the drug. Okay, so in this incident report, the officer stated that on March 21st, 2019, I was dispatched to First Avenue North for a disturbance complaint about several individuals reportedly in their early 20s. When I arrived, the suspects began to run and scatter throughout the park. 3 individuals were apprehended, but it took several officers to detain them. I suspected the individuals were under the influence of drugs because of their high energy levels, and they couldn't sit still even after they were detained. Right, so in this report, we want to remember that their energy levels were high and they could not sit still. First witness statement. I usually see a group of people hanging out at the park when I walk my dog. Most of the time I walk on the other side of the road because the people act strange and are annoyingly talkative. As soon as I entered the park this evening, I heard 2 guys arguing. One guy said, "This isn't as pure as the last time. You're cheating us." Then the other started yelling at the guy. Right, in this statement, we want to remember Yes, that they are annoyingly talkative and that this drug isn't as pure as the last time. Second witness statement, it looked like the people who were arguing hadn't eaten in days. I saw two girls become erratic and they started hitting each other and screaming. So obviously in this statement, we want to remember that it looked like they hadn't eaten and that they were erratic and they were hitting and screaming at each other. Here's the evidence that was collected: the glass pipe with the residue and a picture of some skin abscesses from the suspect that was detained at the park. All right, so here's what we know. The officer reported the high energy and they could not sit still. The first witness said they were talkative and overheard the drug was not pure. Second witness observing the girls looked like they had not eaten, the erratic behavior, and the fighting. And then the evidence that they collected was the glass pipe with the residue and the picture of the skin covered in the abscesses. All right, so we analyze all of our evidence. We get the report back from the lab, and it was determined that the residue was found to contain, did you get this? Methamphetamine, right? Case number 3, again, we're going to read the report, determine the drug. Here's the police incident report. On November 21st, 2019, I was dispatched to 1234 Elm Street in response to a 911 call reporting that a toddler was found standing alone crying outside a neighbor's door. The boy had a fresh burn on his hand. I knocked on the neighboring doors. A 17-year-old male opened the door and claimed the toddler was his brother. The teen said he didn't hear his brother leave. The teen had no explanation for the burn and appeared very confused. I discovered the oven was on and the oven door open. The paramedics conducted a brief exam of the teen and suspected he was under the influence. I arrested the teen and brought him in for drug testing. Okay, in this report, we want to remember that the teen appeared confused. All right. Here is the first witness report from the paramedic. During my assessment of the teen male, he had slurred speech. I asked him several times if he had been drinking, but he denied any alcohol use. He complained of lower abdominal pain. Upon further questioning, the teenager indicated that there was pain in his bladder and he had been unable to urinate normally for the past several hours. So in this statement, we want to remember, yes, that his speech was slurred and he could not urinate normally. All right, our next witness statement. I'm neighbors with the teenager and his family. I've never had any problem with the family. I know the teen frequently watches his little brother after school while his mother is at work. I saw the teen brother about a half hour prior to the incident. He was sweating and threw up behind the stairwell. He ran inside the apartment before I could ask him if he was okay. All right. In this statement, we want to remember that, yes, he was sweating and he threw up. All right, are we getting closer to figuring out what the drug is? Here's our evidence. Gel capsules and an empty gel capsule wrapper in the suspect's kitchen trash can. All right, so here's what we know. The officer reported confusion. The paramedic reported trouble urinating and of the slurred speech. The other witness reported the sweating and the vomiting. And the evidence collected were the gel capsules and the empty capsule wrappers. All right, so what have you determined? You've looked at everything that we know and we analyzed the evidence. The lab report comes back and it's determined that the capsules contain methylphen, which is an active ingredient found in over-the-counter cough medicine. Very good. Case number 4. We're going to read the reports, determine the drug. The incident report from the officer states, on June 13th, 2019, I was dispatched to 1234 Bay Court to investigate a possible overdose. The woman found her daughter in the bathroom experiencing a possible overdose. I found the teenage girl nearly unconscious on the floor in her own vomit. When paramedics arrived, the girl was rushed to the hospital. So in this statement, we want to remember, yes, that the girl was unconscious and she had vomited. Here are our witness statements. I was the first paramedic to arrive at the scene and assess the girl. Her respiratory rate was low. So we want to remember, yes, right? She had that slowed breathing. And the second witness statement from the mother, I had noticed some changes in my daughter lately, but thought she was going through a phase. About a half an hour before she collapsed, I noticed she had slurred speech and complained of itchy skin. So yes, we want to remember the slurred speech, itchy skin. Very good. All right, so here's our evidence. Multiple white pills and the prescription bottle on the floor. All right, so take a moment. Let's figure out, what do we know? The officer reported that the girl was unconscious and the vomiting. The paramedic reported the respiratory rate was low, and the witness observed the slurred speech and itchy skin. And then they collected the multiple white pills on the bathroom floor. All right, so what drug do you think was used in this incident? You get the lab report back, right? It was analyzed to have found hydrocodone bitartrate, all these names, and acetaminophen. So these are the ingredients that are commonly found in prescription pain medicine. Very good. So the girl had overdosed on prescription pain reliever. Excellent. All right, here's our last case. Case number 5. The police reported on January 18th, 2020, I was dispatched to 123 North Ritter Street to respond to a complaint of a large crowd and loud music coming from an abandoned warehouse at this address. When I arrived at the scene, I suspected most of the people were under the influence of drugs. They were sweating and appeared to have high energy levels. I arrested 2 suspects for disorderly conduct. 1 additional suspect was arrested for drug possession. Right. In this report, we want to remember, yes, the sweating and the high energy levels. All right. Witness statement. I woke up to noises in my backyard. When I looked out, I saw several people walking from an abandoned warehouse to my backyard to drink from my water hose. I heard some of them complaining that they were thirsty because their mouths were so dry. All right. In this report, we want to remember, yes, their mouths were dry. The next statement, I woke up to the sound of loud music at 2:30 a.m. I went out on my porch to take a closer look. I saw people dancing in the warehouse. 3 of the party goers stood in the street asking each other why they were wearing sunglasses and hats at night. They must have been hallucinating because none of them were wearing sunglasses or hats. So from this statement, we want to remember, yes, that they were hallucinating. Here's the evidence that was collected. The pacifier and the 4 pills that had the star, heart, skull, and alien face on it. Here's what we know. The officer reported the sweating and the high energy. The first witness reported hearing the suspects reported the dry mouth. Second witness observed the suspects hallucinating. They collected the brightly colored pills with the star, the heart, the alien, and skull on them in the pacifier. All right, so from everything we know, what did you determine the drug? Here's the lab report, right? They tested all of the pills and it was analyzed and found to contain MDMA. Very good. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to my program today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at the Council on Chemical Abuse. You can find more information on our website, www.cocaburks.org, or you can ask a teacher. You can email me at aklein@cocaburks.org. All right, thank you. Stay safe.